Okay.
Okay. So, say your name again and how long you've been.
Did you like the way I said what I said?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. My name is Nicole and I'm from Elephant. Whoa. Elephant? That didn't work.
Go ahead.
Do you think I should say the phrase, my name is Nicole and I'm the photographer behind Ellison Photographic?
My company is Ellison Photographic. I like that.
My name is Nicole and my company is Ellison Photographic.
Say it again.
My name is Nicole and my company is Ellison Photographic.
Now you're too smiley.
Well, keep looking at me like that.
Uh-oh. Those people took offense to me closing those doors. I don't know. Why are people so funny like that? I just closed the door and was like,
All I know is I'm gonna sneeze. Just promise me you won't use that in anything.
I'm gonna use it. So, okay, what was the photo shoot with the car stuff? What was that all about?
The photo shoot that we just did was the Nissan Car Club, and my friend Austin asked me to shoot with some models. We had 3 or 4 female models and 2 male models to try to get some variety. Lots of Nissan cars. I don't know a lot about them because I usually do more classic cars. These were all more modern, late model cars. We had one Datsun, a 70-something.
So, your favorite car was a 1972 Datsun 240Z.
Okay, I'm going to try to remember that. A Datsun, 1972 Datsun Z 240Z. Is it Z 240Z? 240Z, okay. 72 Datsun.
So, in particular, if you had the video up right now, what did you do with your phone? Which you won't be able to see about it if you had it.
Oh, if I had it on, okay.
So that was the one that you spent a lot of time at. So I guess you could say one of the cars I spent a lot of time with was a 1972 Datsun 240Z.
240Z. A 1972 240Z. Okay. All right, ask me the question again.
What am I asking? What
was
that
the shoot?
What was that car you spent so much time with?
I spent a lot of time with the 1972 Datsun 240Z. I like the more classic cars. There was a restored version of it as well, but I didn't actually shoot with that one. I liked the old patina on the 72, and it had some really cool side view mirrors that are apparently part of that design. That's not the word I wanted to say.
It's distinctive for the ones that are on the hood.
That distinctive is what I wanted, actually.
So tell me about the mirrors again.
So I was a big fan of the distinctive side view mirrors that are closer to the headlights, and you're probably going to hear all that.
That's right.
Okay. Just some interesting parts of the car that are not really seen on modern cars.
How about the red interior? Okay, so also tell me about that model with the blonde hair.
So should I say her name?
Yes.
Okay, so one of the models I worked extensively with on this shoot was Love Carter. She is blonde-haired and very bubbly. She had a couple of outfits that we worked with the Datsun and a couple of other cars, of course, I don't know the names of. I know they're Nissans. But we worked with a couple of interesting poses to get inside and outside of the cars. And had her coming out of the trunk, which was one of my favorite poses that we did that day. Kind of a slightly risque, but still kind of innocent girl in your trunk.
I think that's interesting. Can you? Oh, they're not making it on. What was I going to say about it?
As you can see in the video, I pantomime the pose that I want the model to do, and I feel like that helps them see what I want from them. Instead of just saying, hey, put your arms out, I actually show them what I want them to do and mirror it for them, and models seem to really like that kind of direction and instruction on how I want them to look.
Do a lot of photographers do that?
I feel like a lot of photographers don't do that. A lot of the comments I get from my models and clients are that I'm very interactive and that I literally show them or put their hand where I want them to have their hand, or tell them to move it 2 inches closer to their face or something like that. And they really appreciate the ability to see what I really want them to do instead of constantly trying to guess what I'm asking for.
Let's pretend like you can't hear me, because I feel like the only thing that's gonna happen is I'm gonna hear you trying to talk over things, but that audio should be so localized that I probably can't hear it.
Okay, so was I talking too loud?
No, but I worry that you have that tone of voice where you're trying to talk over people.
Oh, okay.
It's fine. How did you feel going into this shoot?
Oh, I was extremely nervous for this shoot, particularly because these are with newer cars, and the expectation for a shoot with newer cars is a little bit different of a style than you would have with more classic cars or a pinup look. There's a slightly different mannerism and posing that would go along with a more modern car pose, and a model who's doing more of a garage girl versus a pinup girl. There's a different kind of posing mechanism that I have to employ to show the difference between those two.
What specifically is different about the poses?
So a shoot for a modern car is more of a seductive and poster hustler style of posing, versus pinup and classic cars is more bubbly and fun and more lift your skirt up just a little bit to show the knee.
Now they probably think they're done. Okay, so
I like this line of questioning, by the way.
can you tell me again, what is different posing-wise? And then please restate that question.
So the difference posing-wise for a newer car shoot is that there's more of a seductive, modern take on posing, less bubbly than you would have with pinup or classic cars. Because when you have pinup, you can do a slightly lift up of a skirt above the knee because of the expectations of the wardrobe at the time. Seeing just above the knee would be the seductive part. Versus a modern car shoot, you see a lot more skin on the average day, so you have to go one step further than that. So there's a little bit of a different ask from the model to show a little more skin first off, and a little different faces, less surprised and blowing kisses and more come hither eyes.
So would you say, would you say sort of vintage pinup style is more like a throwback to the innocent times?
Yes, I feel like there's a different expectation of the subtlety of being sexy.
Can you restate that question?
The difference between the modern and vintage posing would be more of a throwback to an innocent time where you would have a little more subtle sexiness than you would have on modern modeling now.
So your experience is typically older vehicles?
Millie went to sleep.
You have done shoots with older vehicles before?
Typically I shoot with more vintage style cars, 60s and earlier, back to late teens, early 20s, in a variety of working manner. So it was a little bit different to actually have to move the cars around on this shoot, and the fact that all of the cars ran in the first place was kind of an interesting connection with the owners of the cars, because shoots I've done in the past, the owners either drop their cars off at the shoot and they don't really stick around because there's no moving needed of the cars. But sometimes you would have a few that do need to be moved around, and they're the 1 or 2 out of 10 cars that actually run. So there's a different connection with the cars themselves that the models might have. I do feel though that the vintage shoots, the models tend to know a little bit more about cars than they would with the more modern cars. And that's for sure. For me, I don't really know about cars in general.
Can you explain the purpose of this shoot? Like, as far as people with the cars, the models, the photographers?
So the purpose of this shoot, from the organizer's perspective, was that this was for the member, is a benefit that the club.
It's fine too, because I talked over you. We are seeing that, so let's wait until it passes.
Okay. Am I doing okay?
You're doing fantastic. I feel like I forget that half of this is just getting people comfortable enough to talk. You're like not even saying your own name properly, and then now you're just like having no problem answering questions.
Yeah.
Of course, remember to restate them because sometimes I'm asking them in a real roundabout way.
Yes.
And then you're just saying yes. No, restate. But no, I think it's fantastic.
There was a tomato on the side of that, and it says, NY tomato.
I thought that was the end, but it's just like a really brown, rusty one. I thought that was through the trees.
What do you think's in there?
Grain. Those look like green ones. See how they can be dropped to the bottom?
Yeah.
It's crazy though, huh? So this is how this thing works here. And so I turn up the levels, and I'm trying to have. We even talked about this in I can't remember his name right now. The class we just did with
Kevin.
So he was saying -6. Remember I said it's interesting that everyone always says -6. I don't know why. So if you just talk normal voice.
So I'm talking normal
So
voice
you
and I'm
get
hitting the
about-
12.
Yeah, -12, but up close enough to -6. So I feel like right now, you can barely hear me. There's a way to have it self-compensate, so it sort of guesses what should be heard and what isn't. I can get rid of a lot of this background noise later, but you notice how like I'm talking like this, I can completely get rid of myself right now, if I wanted to. But so that's what you're trying to do is try. If anything else registers on there, I can always just turn it down and just get you specifically, and then turn you up later. Okay, let's go ahead with it because I feel like that train is
Gonna take forever, yeah. Okay, so the question we were on was
what is the purpose of this shoot?
purpose of the shoot. So the purpose of this particular shoot from the organizer's perspective was offering benefit to the members of the club. So the Nissan Club is a group of guys that come together and do car stuff. They either do car shows or they do mechanic meetups or whatever it is that the club normally does. From a photographic standpoint, this is a trade shoot.
Let's start this one over. You have a habit, and I do this too, you have a habit of explaining things you don't know the answer to and like walking yourself into it.
Yeah.
The type of car was, oh my God, I don't know the type of car. So don't start that if you don't know the answer.
Well,
so just say they had cars or whatever. So like
they're a club, and this is a benefit that they. Well, the purpose of the shoot was they pay dues and they want to do activities with it.
So
One of their.
So what was the purpose of this shoot?
Purpose of this shoot was to. Man, now you made me nervous. Was to.
Did you know Love before? Have you shot with her before?
I have not shot with Love before, but I know her as a model. Yes, I've been at shoots where she has been.
Have you shot with Celeste before?
No, that was actually the first time I'd ever met her. But she follows my pages and stuff, so she knows of me.
She had already followed you. Those male models, you never shot with them.
I never shot with either of them, but I've been on shoots where both of them have been. Yeah. I don't tend to shoot with male models all that often. I tend to lean more towards at least more androgynous male modeling if I do use males. My style of photography just doesn't really employ uber masculine men all that much.
Why did you do this shoot?
I did this shoot because Austin asked for photographers he knew would provide quality images for the members of this club that were using their dues to participate in activities concerning their cars. They're guys that really like cars and they want pictures of their cars. And so from a photographer standpoint, the purpose of this shoot for me was to get more images for my portfolio and to provide those images to the models and to the owners of the cars. Unfortunately, I tend to shoot more model-centric rather than prop-centric, and to me the car is a prop. But there were other photographers there that were going to be able to provide wide open panorama style images for the other cars. But most of my models are going to be close cropped and focusing on the model to get them good images that they can use in their portfolio, and that would work for me for my portfolio as well. I see what you did there.
Is it clever?
Yes.
Okay, so what do you feel like, what unique perspective do you feel like you bring to a shoot like this where other people are just shooting cars?
The feedback I tend to get from models and photographers that work with me is that I provide a different approach to taking someone's photograph. I feel like a lot of times models will tell me that they don't get any kind of direction from the photographer, and my unique perspective is that I've been on both sides of the camera and I know what it feels like to stand on the other side and not know what the photographer's asking me to do. So to be able to be very descriptive and tell a model, I want your hand to look like this, I want you to hold it like this, I want you to put your feet here, and translate that in a way to explain to the model exactly what I want, is a skill that I believe that I have that a lot of photographers who haven't been on the other side of the camera don't have.
Did you have fun?
I was very nervous to start with, and it was very cold, but at the end I was, well, really during the shoot when I saw how great the images were turning out and how happy the models and the owners of the cars were to see them, I was pretty ecstatic. I haven't really delved deep into editing the images yet, but I think they look pretty good.
Do you think, as someone who has modeled before, do you think it's nice to be able to see the back of the camera while you're shooting?
Yes, I tend to show the model the back of the camera after 2 or 3 shots, just so that they can see generally where they look, or how they look in the scene and how they look in perspective to the rest of what they're modeling around. Because it's hard to be like, oh, I see this giant car behind me, but all I can see is what's immediately around me. So to be able to show them what their environment looks like and that they're modeling in is really helpful. Plus, they get confidence from seeing a good image of themselves and what they look like in their outfit or with the light, or is their hair looking funny. And that way when I continue to coach them on how they should look, they know in reference to what I'm speaking about.
Do you ever feel awkward or weird, like you're asking someone to do something weird and they have to trust you?
One of the things I think, again, from my experience being a model on the other side of the camera, is that I have the ability to know what looks awkward, what feels awkward, and be able to kind of walk a model through knowing that if it looks uncomfortable or you feel uncomfortable, it's going to look great. So a lot of times when I'll say, well, this feels really weird, yes, it probably means it looks great. So being able to commiserate with a model that a pose feels really awkward is something that they can appreciate, knowing that it still looks good.
I noticed a couple times you would take a photo as a test and then get really excited or high-five the model or whatever. Is that typical? Do you do that a lot during the shoot?
I am very interactive with the models that I shoot with, and I would say 99% of them are appreciative of the fact that I don't just stand by my light and click away. I actually interact with them, and I come back into their modeling space and interact with them, show them images, put their hand where I want them to have their hand, or fix their hair, or do things that I think are a little easier as a female photographer to be able to interact directly with the models in a way that other photographers, particularly males, may not be able to do. But I think models also appreciate being treated like a human while you're shooting them, and that includes talking to them directly, approaching them and showing them the images that you're shooting, and generally not just staying by your light like a guy with camera photographer.
I think enough about you posing them and working with them, which is probably a lot of what the video looks like. But I want to get you to say something about the various times you would, like, were you surprised by how good the photos started to look when you saw them in camera?
I go into every shoot with an extreme level of anxiety, even though I know 97% of the time, the images are going to turn out great. And I do surprise myself almost every time a shoot goes well that I have manufactured the lighting pattern, I have placed the model, I have placed the prop, be it an outfit or a car in this instance. But when I shoot something and I very meticulously pose someone and I look at the back of my camera and it actually looks amazing in camera, which is always my goal. But if it looks amazing in camera and I feel giddy enough that I have to show the model so that they can share in the joy of the fact that this looks kick-ass, it surprises me every time. And I've been doing this for 12 years and I'm still surprised when an image looks good on the back of my camera.
Did you find it particularly challenging, the fact that it was getting dark and getting very cold?
This particular shoot was very challenging because we started mid-November at 4 o'clock and there were really nice lighting that was happening when we weren't able to shoot, and then it got dark. So it was also very cold and the models weren't wearing very much for the most part. And as a photographer, I was wearing a lot of layers and I was cold, so I knew the models were cold, which adds a layer of challenge for both the model and the photographer to figure out how to coach the model into not looking cold, which is a feat in and of itself. So to then add the fact that it's dark, and I get anxiety about manufacturing artificial light. I prefer natural light, but for this particular topic, artificial light actually made more sense. More dramatic lighting and more directional lighting. So it was a challenge, but it also is kind of a benefit to have something that I needed to challenge myself to create the image that I needed to create.
It's 4:45. So sum it up, how did it go? How did things wind up looking?
I'm really glad that Austin asked me to shoot this. And I'm glad that I got anxious about the things I got anxious about, because then I was able to overcome that during the shoot, and I think the images look great. And I'm glad that I challenged myself and allowed myself to do well, and I think the images are going to show that.
Do you think you'll do this same thing in the future?
I definitely like to shoot with cars. I think I will stick with classic cars. I have a little more in my back pocket on the posing for that kind of thing. But yes, I'll be shooting with cars again in the future. Perhaps I might shoot with motorcycles near future.
Okay.
Okay.